here is my Tonka truck mobile clamp. I've had this toy, I think about a year or so now. I bought it out of an antique store. I think I paid about 40 bucks for it. I really like cranes. If you know anything about me, I have a fascination with them for some reason. That's why I have one on my truck. That's why I aspire to own a big crawler crane one day. But until then, I have to settle for a toy. And Tonka did make an actual crawler crane, which would be one of these with a set of tracks under it. But I have not come across one yet, and I feel that when I do come across one, it'll be unaffordable, at least for me. So, now that it is winter, as you can see here in eastern Iowa, I figured what better time to attempt being a toy maker than now. So what we're going to do is we are going to use basically this style of house and this scale, and I'm going to build myself a little crawler one. Still going to keep this one, I'm not going to gut this one. I'm going to build a completely separate toy and just kind of base it off this. But first, as you can tell by all the things around me from various projects that I've been working on before winter, I need to go ahead and clean up my garage and get my plasma table cleaned up because that's going to be a big part of this project. So let's get started with that. All right, well, first things first here, we get the garage cleaned up. Now we need to go ahead and fire up the computer, which is easy for most people, but this computer's lasted me for about 6 years now. All through college, being carried around a welding shop for various tasks, and now living in my shop, running my plasma table, which is causing some issues. The number one issue being the power button has stopped working. So you have to hit the reset button with something small like a torch tip cleaner, and then set it through a weird startup, and it fires up. So while that's warming up, I'm trying to think of how I want to start this. If I want to start with the house of the crane first, start with the boom, or start with the track system. The track system is the one thing I don't have a reference for. It's also probably going to be the most time-consuming thing to build. And I mean, it's the base, so I'm thinking I'll start with that. So we'll take some measurements and I'll get some drawings going. All right, well, we got the track frame and some track pads to burn out here. So we're going to burn out 4 track frame sections and a crap load of track pads. All right, we got 30 track pads, or at least I cut 30. There's probably some hiding out in the table I didn't notice. Then we have 4 pieces for the track frame, which will make up 2 completed track frames in the end. So I'm going to space these out like 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. Then we'll just place these on like so. Make it look like, hopefully, a set of crane tracks. But first, the worst part of this is I need to go through and clean up all the dross. These little parts would be perfect for a tumbler, but I don't have a tumbler, so I've got a lot of hand cleaning ahead of me. I'm not really welding them out all the way. I just will basically be just tacking them on there, so they don't have to be perfect, but I want them to look better than that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll start tacking. All right. Run around all the pieces, all the big pieces with like 45 grit disc. Wasn't trying to get shiny metal, just cleaning all the dross off of them, making them weld easier. So those are all good. These, I ended up gripping with a set of, what do you call them? Locking pliers? Vice grips, jeez Louise. Grabbed these with vice grips and ran them in a bench grinder with a wire wheel on it. So those clean up decently. They still have some dross on them, but I mean, it's the treads of a crane. It's supposed to be dirty. So, yeah. So now I gotta devise. I want to set this up with a jig of some sort, or what? I'll probably, because I don't want them like this or this or this. I want them straight. So I'm gonna find something to clamp between them, and then we'll figure out how to lay out our treads. All right. So I got a punch here, which makes our overall width just under an inch. These are 2-inch treads, so it gives like a 1/2 inch on both sides. So something like that I think will look pretty good. And there we have one track frame. So that I took all of the little pieces I had except for one to make it. Didn't really plan out my cutting, so that's obvious. So I got to cut another set of those. And hopefully tonight we'll have 2 tracks made up. All right, we got 2 track frames tacked up. This one was the first one. Went really good. Pretty even spacing all the way around. This one was the second one. Got a little cattywampus, and we were off a little bit on our last spacing, but we'll just flip that upside down. And we should be good to go. So next thing is going to be, I guess you'd call it like the carriage frame. So I have to decide on my spacing between here and decide how I want to design what the house will sit on. I haven't really decided what that's going to be yet, but I think I'll just start doing some drawing and we'll see how that goes. All right, so this will be the top of our carriage house, I think you would call it. So what I did was cut out a plate. That's the carriage house. This will be bent at an angle, bent at an angle, bent at an angle. I don't have a break, so I just do relief cuts like this. So let's see how it bends up. Just kind of guesstimating on my angles here. I don't know how far I want to go. Looks pretty even, but let me check it. Close enough. Now we got to do these end tabs, which will be the hard part because they're so small. So I can clamp them. So what I'm thinking is something like that. So while I have the plasma table hooked up, I'm going to measure out this trapezoid here, cut that, because we'll cap out on both sides, and then we'll get it all tacked together. Good enough. Carriage frame. Sweet. That right there is the basis of our crane. It's a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. And I'm not in love with this. I wish I would have made this kind of have some angle off the front. But I think it'll look perfect once you have the carriage on it. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. So, those tracks were sweet. Getting bent now. Also decided to use this bearing. So we'll weld the inside of the bearing to the base of the carriage. We'll weld the base of the house to the outside of the bearing. As long as I don't overheat this bearing, I should be able to have a spinning model. I decided that would be a lot cooler and worth the effort. So this bearing came out of my Jeep's transfer case, so it's used but in good shape. I'm going to go ahead and bend this guy in shape. All right, well, we've been cruising through some designing and cutting. It's not tacked up, it's just magneted in place right now. But you see the shape here we got going. So I'm loosely basing this off of an American crawler crane. American's a brand. I've always kind of liked them. So we've got the house on this side, which is matching to that. Got the big old window. I'm going to end up plasma cutting out a door here, like a barn door style, and like a hinge track. We'll tack that on after. Decided to do some bending here, and we gave the roof a little bit of shape, so that roof plate's going to be a little tough to make, but not too bad. This plate needs some trimming down to fit in there nice. Ooh, that bent a little funky now that I look at it. That's going to be a problem later. The relief cut didn't cut on the plasma like it was supposed to. Then we come over here, arches down. Very similar to that, but that's also how an American crane does it. And this will end up a little square. Will be trimmed out of here. Actually, it'll be trimmed all the way over to where I end the cab. And the winch will sit right in there. So what we need to do next is back portion of the roof. So it'll have a bend, flat, and this side will go over and probably end about there. And go the width of the cab. First, I'll probably build the front of the cab actually, and the side of the cab, and then we'll do the roof. So that's what we'll do first. So let me get to it. All right. Got our front window. Wanted to make sure the operator had plenty of view, so went for 2 windows. I'm gonna bend this up a little bit. Needs to go a little further. So there's the front of our operator station. We'll get it perfect when we tack it. Now, the last thing I think I cut before I start tacking stuff up is I'm going to do the side of the cab here, which will just go from here over to there. And then we'll tack us all together. Right, so I've never welded a bearing to a piece of sheet metal before. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I wiped the bearing off, but it's still probably covered in ATF, so it might catch on fire. We're going to find out. And I'm going to try and do my very best about limiting my heat input so I don't cook the bearing, because I still would like it to spin after this. And ideally spin smoothly. That's the whole point of using a bearing. So let's see how this goes. I get the inside tacked up. I mean, it makes a little bit of noise, but overall, it spins pretty good. So next we're going to throw this plate down, but this, I definitely want some clearance. So I'm going to give about a 1/4 inch clearance, or an 1/8 inch clearance. You know, let's double that just to be safe. We are cooking the oil or grease or whatever is right out of that bearing, but that's okay. Voila. All right, that should work. I'm gonna go ahead and tack it a little more. All right, the bearing's getting a little less than happy, but all right, for some reason I feel like if I keep it spinning while it cools, that'll help make sure the bearings don't get ruined, or the bearing doesn't get ruined. Sweet. I'm gonna keep that spinning, then we'll start tacking on our sides. All right, well, we got the house set, or the first side of the house set. We're gonna get that tacked in place. All right. Side number 1 is on the crane. Alrighty. 2 sides of the crane. I guess we'll do the back next. Ooh. We got a little bit of gappage going on now. That's not good. Ugh, that's ugly. Oh, actually, well, no, we might be better off than I thought. All right, got the back together. Shoo-wee. She's looking cool. Oh, sorry, bumped you guys at the welder. Next thing is the windshield, front of the cab, whatever you want to call it. We'll go something like that. All right, I think maybe our last piece for the night is the side of the cab, which will go like that. Alrighty, man, cutting these and figuring them out, designing them takes forever, but when you got all the pieces and you just start tacking like that, and everything kind of just butts up against each other, it goes pretty quick. And I'm really digging. I think it's a little bit too big for the tracks. A tiny bit, but not too bad. But I'm really digging the shape. All right, let's see if we got this remotely right. Oh, yeah. Hopefully once we fold it down, it'll be perfect. We get it cleaned up and then we'll do that. All right, we got the initial bend done. Definitely not perfect. Needs to bend a little bit more, but lining up pretty good. Let's go adjust that bend a little. So for most of the bends here, I do an inch, no cut, inch, no cut, and so on pattern. And for 14 gauge steel, you can form it pretty easily then. Not great, but pretty easy. All right, well, I think that's about as close as we're gonna get it. That gap right there is perfect. All the way up here to the very tip. where I'm going to knock that windshield tack off, pull the windshield down, close that gap up. We'll leave ourselves with a little bit of gap here maybe. Not bad. Over here, this piece, the plasma missed a cut, so it bent funky. So that's giving us some issues here. I'll have to do a little bit of trimming. Or maybe I should have redone that. There's the compressor. Should have redone that bend, but we'll get it done. Let me go ahead and start tacking. All right, well, I changed my mind and decided to cut the front cover while I still have the plasma hooked up. And it's going to need some trimming. It's not really sitting in the exact spot. Neither is the cap, roof, whatever. Man, got it just about closed in. We'll have to cut out that little piece that goes in there tomorrow. I should have just extended this back. I wasn't thinking. And this does block the window a little bit, so the operator won't be able to see much, you know, for all his operating. But looking really good. I'm really happy with it. Wish this corner wasn't so messed up, but she still looks sweet. Yeah, a lot bigger than I anticipated. I was really thinking like half the size, like the Tonka truck. But hey, bigger's always better, right? Alrighty, fresh new day. It's like 30-some degrees today, so I decided to leave the door open rather than 18. And so far, I have gone ahead and filled in this little gap here with just a little triangle. Went ahead, fitted up. I still need to fit the windshield a little bit better, but fitted the back of the cab up. This is going to get smoothed off where that corner didn't bend so good, but got the roof on, got that side plate on. So the next thing I need to do is trim up this guy and get it fit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Also just made the mistake of grinding down a tack in here, which shot a bunch of crud down into the bearing, so that now sounds cruddy. But we're moving right along. All right, we officially have our cab closed in. That tack's full of porosity. Gotta smooth that down a little bit, smooth this down a little bit. Fix our windshield frame. And we're ready to move on to the boom section, which I'm really excited about. All right. I left a triangle in. That'll have to come out, but bent up okay. I wouldn't say good by any means, but it's in a right angle now. Here's our other one. And it'll end up looking something like that. All right, well, I got a little ahead of myself and didn't film it, but got the boom tacked up. It's pretty easy. Turned out pretty square, I think. Not horrible. Some of the bends didn't turn out great with my relief cuts, but like I said, the plasma was cutting kind of weird. But overall, really happy with it. It's really strong, actually. But now we gotta figure out how to get it mounted up, which I think is just gonna be some tabs down here with a hole for a bolt to go in. And then the last big thing we gotta design is the top bracket, the top cable support. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, we got a big moment in this little tiny build. We've got a crawler crane with a boom, a massive boom. I think I made this 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. Definitely could have gone for quite a bit smaller, probably like 1 3/4 by 1 3/4, but oh well, at least it doesn't look twinky. I think I got the height or length about right. I did it like 30-some inches. That looks okay. Man, does that look cool. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. For the boom mounts, I just made some simple little square, basically squares with a rounded edge. I think I'll trim this off, but kind of kept it simple, kept it easy. At the end of the boom, I just made both ends of the boom the same. Probably should have designed this, or at least cut a space out here for the cable to come down, but I'm not too worried about that much detail. So I think what I will do is I'll have a rope or cable of some sort, get wrapped around the bolt down in there. It'll come up and go out, and it'll just drape over the sharp edge. And we'll be fine for display. And, man, I don't know what I'm going to hang from it yet. I was debating on a dragline bucket. Could do a clamshell, but that'd be kind of complicated to build. A wrecking ball, but I don't know what I would do to make the ball. I was also thinking of just doing a little American flag for right now, maybe. I don't know. Haven't completely decided. But got the boom on. So now, we just got some final details to do. We gotta do something like this up here for the two cables that'll hold the boom. And I cut out a door that'll get tacked on here, just stationary, with a little like slider track. I held that up there, I'm not 100% on it. Then I got two little signboards here. We're either gonna do them both on the side of the boom, or I originally intended one on the side like that, and then one on the back where I'll probably put my last name, or maybe I'll write American Crane on there, I'm not sure. And then, once we get that all buttoned up, she's about done. So I'll give you a grand tour when we're finished up with all the little details. All right, we got the little crane all finished up here. So some of the final details I did was I added the signboard on the side. Oh, taking out the flag there. The signboard on the back. Then I went ahead and stuck on the side door and the door track. And then I obviously ran all the cable. This is just a little 1/8" cable I got from the hardware store. Even got a little pulley snatch block. And then for now, eventually I would like to find something to make a wrecking ball for the end of this. But for now, we just got the American flag sitting in there, which will look good while I display it. So this is where I'm going to leave this project off for now. I don't have a TIG welder currently at my house. I have one back home in Maryland, but I don't have the power to run it here. So I want to wait until I get a TIG welder that I can run here to weld it all the way out. And then we'll see about painting it. But for now, just tacked, I kind of like it. So I'm really happy with how this turned out from building it pretty much from scratch. Got very little money into it and just a lot of time. It's a fun little project. Thank you for watching. Let me know what I should build next.